Where did your beliefs about money actually come from? And are they still quietly deciding what you earn, keep, and invest today? Well, by the end of today, you'll understand where your money beliefs actually came from, long before you even earn a paycheck. So you'll get to spot live which of these inherent beliefs are still steering your decisions right now. And you'll leave away with 2 questions: how to answer them, how to move on. But it's just going to give you a little bit of insight into the different calls that you can make about money and the opportunity and how you can turn up in a different room. So, how does this land with you guys? Let's see with the moment, what moment this shows up the most, okay? You look at the number on your bank account. You could afford it, you know you could, and you still don't do it, right? It's not the right time. Maybe next year. Maybe things will be better soon. But somewhere underneath that decision, something else is running the show. And it's nothing to do with the number on the screen. Hi, and welcome to my Upgrade Show. For those who don't know me, I'm Julie Smith. I'm a confidence and identity specialist and the creator of the Identity Box Rewind method. And I help high achievers break free from the subconscious patterns that keep them stuck so they can become the version of themselves they deserve to be. And today we're talking about money. We're not talking about budgets. We're not talking about spreadsheets. We're looking at where your beliefs about money actually come from and how they can still be quietly influencing the decisions you're making today. Now, later I'm going to take you through something called the Money Belief Rewind, which will help you uncover one of those beliefs and begin to understand where it came from and why it started showing up. Because you might think you're making a logical decision about money when actually an old part of your identity could be making that decision for you. All right, so let's get into this, right? Let's see what sounds familiar for you. Now, have you ever had money to invest in yourself and found it perfectly reasonable not to do it, right? Any reason under the sun, you know you wanted to do it, but there's something just stopped you from doing it. Probably fear, right? Have you ever looked at someone else's success and thought quietly, that's all very well for them, but people like me don't get that kind of success? Do you notice you spend all your money maybe on your kids, the house, the holiday, and you do that actually without even blinking, but you freeze the second it's just for you? Have you ever said, I'll do it next year? Maybe it's that retreat that you always wanted to go on, but you just keep putting it off. Or that course you really wanted to do, but I can't spend money on myself. Have you ever turned down a promotion or not asked for the pay rise and told yourself it wasn't the right time? Have you noticed money arriving and then disappearing again, almost as fast as it came in? And honestly, you couldn't even tell me where it went. Right? These are all common things that come up all the time with my clients. Now, if you've recognized yourself in any of that, it doesn't mean you're not capable. It means you've learned something a long time ago that's still running the show. All right? And we talk about this all the time, our identity. So this is no different. This is about the identity around money. What did you grow up around? What were the beliefs that you heard people around you saying? Now, if you're watching this live, I'm just going to open my chat actually. If you're watching this live, I'd love you to join in with me. And I'm going to ask you some questions. And you just put the number in the chat if you think this resonates with you, right? So number 1 is money doesn't grow on trees. Was that something that you heard a lot when you was a child? Number 2, you can't afford it. Well, we can't afford it really because it will be coming from parents, right? Number 3, rich people are greedy. Number 4, you have to work hard for every penny you earn. So basically, if you're not working hard, you're not earning, right? Number 5, people like us never have money. Number 6, don't get too big for your boots. Number 7, money burns a hole in your pocket. Right? When I was young, I was more of a saver, but my younger sister, she was just like that. She couldn't hold on to money. She'd always have to spend it. All right. So just check in the chat. Drop in the chat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. Or if you do all of them, just type all, because you might have heard all of those. All right. They're very common ones. Now, for me, when I'm working with my clients, there are so many similar examples that come out with this, right? And I do a lot of money belief work with people as well. But I do remember with a client in particular, I had a call with, just the free call I do to see whether you want to come and work with me or not. And we talked through what was going on for him. I mean, honestly, his life was in tatters. He was trying to keep hold of getting access to his daughter. He had a drug issue. So therefore he was blowing money left, right and centre. And he was so into, I really want to do this work. I really want to change. He had so many things to lose. And then I told him the investment, which to be honest wasn't that much. And immediately he went, I can't afford that. I've just spent £10,000 on a holiday. And I'll never forget it. It always stays with me. And if I could watch myself back, I was probably like, now I'm not saying he shouldn't have spent £10,000 on a holiday. And don't get me wrong, I love a holiday as much as the next person. But what I am saying is it's about priorities, isn't it? Right? It's about how you choose to spend money. And I know some people that it's still not an option for, but for those of us that are fortunate to be earning money, relative good money, that option's always there, but it's a choice of what we decide to do. And I can't afford it kind of comes up as our kind of reflex thing that we say, isn't it? Now, because actually that wasn't necessarily true, was it, for him? He just demonstrated that he could spend significant amount of money, and he was absolutely spending it on drugs and alcohol and things anyway. So he was used to spending significant amount of money, but he wasn't in a position to decide for himself that he needed to spend it on himself, and that's the issue. And I see different versions of this all the time. Like, people will spend money on their children, their house, their partner. Holidays obviously is a huge thing. Maybe it's the car, renovating a house. I also worked with someone who had moved, and it was like, I can't do another session because I'm spending all this money on renovating the house, and the investment was like minuscule in comparison to what he was spending on the house. And it's like, well, think about how much you could progress in your life by just doing that next session, but what can you do? You can't force people. But there's also a lot of guilt that's involved, and I see this a lot, with parents, like, I could invest that money on myself, but then the whole family's not going to get a holiday. And I get that, and it is a tough decision to have to make. But what I will say about a holiday, though, yes, you may well go and have a brilliant time, and maybe the whole family have a great time, but you take your identity, your current identity, with you, but you also bring that identity back. So you might feel relaxed and happy for a week or two when you get back, but you'll go back straight into your old habits, your old belief systems will be kicking back in because nothing's changed. All right. So sometimes it's about thinking about the priorities around money, and it's about priorities around yourself. Because as I say to everybody, you have to put yourself first, because if you don't, you become useless to everybody, right? The old plane analogy, put your mask on before you help someone else, right? A lot of us struggle with, I'm not worthy enough to spend that money. People like me don't spend money like that on themselves. And if you spend that money, you could make significant changes in all aspects of your life. But, it's the way it is, right? So that's what it looks like from the outside. So should we have a quick look to see what's happening on the inside? This is my interpretation of what's going on, right? your brain likes to keep you consistent, right, with what it believes who you are. And I always talk about my identity box, right? I want you to think about this as like a thermostat, not for temperature, but for money. Now, if you think about a thermostat, you go 0 to 100 or whatever it is, and you get your little red line that goes up. So when it gets hot, the temperature goes up. When it gets down, the temperature gets cooler. But the thermostat kind of runs the show, doesn't it? It determines whether it needs to put the heating on or turn the heating off, right? Now, your brain works in a similar way with money. So your identity bots can work in a similar way. So if somewhere along the line you learn people like me never earn money, money's too hard to hold on to, you have to work really, really, really hard all the time to make money, people like me don't spend money on themselves, that can become part of what you believe about who you are, and that becomes your identity. So every time life takes you beyond that familiar setting, something in you may quietly try to pull you back. Now, if you're in business or something, that might look like undercharging, or it could be you're avoiding opportunities altogether. When you're in the corporate world, maybe it's avoiding applying for that promotion, or even if you get offered it, turning it down. It could even look like money coming in somewhere and disappearing. Even if you won some money, even, you might find that it doesn't last very long. It just goes back out again. Because your brain is trying to stop you succeeding. It's trying to keep you consistent with the identity that it's always known, right? And this is why simply knowing what you do isn't always enough to change it. Because if the pattern sits at an identity level, you can consciously want something completely different, while another part of you is still trying to keep you where it's familiar. Now, remember, your mind's only job is to keep you safe. So if it starts to make you feel unsafe, it's going to draw you straight back in. I'll share my story in a minute of how that kind of worked for me. So let's look at where it shows up, okay? Now, and this doesn't only show up when you're physically spending money, it can affect how much money you allow yourself to earn in the first place. Just let that sink in for a moment, right? So if you're a business owner, you know what your service is worth, right? But when it comes to actually saying the price out loud, you reduce before the other person has ever reacted. Maybe you're in negotiations, right, with a real high-ticket client, and then they come up with a figure, and you just take that first number because it just feels uncomfortable or greedy or something, right? Or maybe you're incredibly capable and experienced, but you find yourself sitting in a room with senior people and suddenly you become a different version of yourself. Now, this reminds me of another client actually that I worked with. He was very senior in the corporate world and he was incredibly good at what he did. But when he went into senior meetings and boardroom situations, his confidence would disappear. He'd struggle to speak up, he'd question himself. He wasn't showing up as that experienced, capable person he actually was. And of course, that doesn't just affect how you feel in a meeting, it affects how other people see you. And it also affects opportunities that you're considered for, right? And ultimately, it can affect what you earn. So once we've worked on what you're actually sitting on underneath, which obviously is driven by lack of confidence, things begin to change. And for him, once we'd done some deep work, I think it was within about 6 months, if I remember rightly, he was considered for a significant promotion. Now, it's important to understand his knowledge hadn't suddenly changed. Neither had his experience, that was still the same. But what had changed was a version of him that he was able to bring into that room. And that's why I think money beliefs are so much bigger than simply whether you're good or bad with money, right? They can affect what you charge, they can affect what you ask for, what you invest in, and what your opportunities will be. And that's all based on a belief or beliefs that are sitting in your subconscious programming. And I'd always say this, that I wish I'd known what I know now back in the day, because I know I would have done things very, very, very differently. And this is why it's important I get this message out to people, because I don't want you all stuck. I want you to be living the best version of yourself that you possibly can. And by doing that, we need to upgrade your identity. But for today, though, because obviously we can't do super, super duper changes on this show as much as I'd like to, I want to talk to you about a simple tool that you can actually start using, and it will start shifting and bringing some awareness into your life. Now, as you know, I normally like to give you a little bit of education around it first before we do it. So all those people who got those logical brains, you want to know why it's going to work, right? So let's have a look. So why does what I'm about to tell you actually help? Okay, that's the question. Well, the answer is because you can't begin to change something you don't know is there. All right, so if you haven't got an awareness about something, how are you ever going to change it? All right, and when we're in life where we're just on that continuous treadmill, when we're not listening to ourselves, we're not feeling, we're not taking notice of what's going on, that's when we can start getting into trouble, because our body's just storing that negative beliefs, those negative feelings and emotions, and then they end up manifesting in psychological and physical conditions, right? So to start making a change, we need to bring awareness into our lives. And I think if you was to go back on all my previous shows, which are now all available on all the regular podcasts, by the way, because that's all launched last week, which is really exciting. Look for the upgrade, but look for the upgrade Middleside therapy and coaching, because if you put Julie Smith in it, it brings up some other wonderful Julies in the world, and it's not my show. So anyway, I've distracted myself now. I'm going to have a little drink because I don't know where I am now. So, oh yeah, that was it. I like to give you a tool, don't I, which helps to bring things into awareness for you, right? Because we can't begin to change something if we don't know there's something to change. Now, a lot of our beliefs weren't things we consciously decided to believe even. So between 0 and 7, that's the main time that we create most of our belief systems, right? So whoever your main caregivers were at that time, you're likely to have picked up many of their beliefs, right? And as at that age, our brain isn't developed enough, so we don't have logic. So anything that we heard or picked up around us, we wouldn't have challenged it because we didn't know how, right? But the difference is you do now. You are able to challenge. And I want you to think about a belief. A belief is just something that you literally believe, right? You believe in the Tooth Fairy. You believe in Father Christmas. You believe that the moon's made of cheese. I don't know, right? But you can change a belief and you can choose to believe something else. Now, the problem is we have to make sure that your subconscious mind gets changed, because if you consciously believe that you are good enough, but your subconscious believes that you're not, that subconscious mind's going to win, because that you're dealing with 5% conscious, 95 subconscious, right? So subconscious mind's always going to win. So like any belief, we have to change it at a subconscious level. And there's many ways we can do that. But we're not going to be able to do that today because it would be a little too intense and we haven't got time, and obviously we can't do that right now. But what I want you to understand is a belief can be changed, right? And just because we heard them back then, it's become part of who we are now. When we bring awareness to it, we can challenge that and we can decide that actually, maybe I don't want that belief anymore. Does that make sense? So the first step isn't trying to force yourself to believe something different, right? It's becoming aware of what's already running. Because once you can see the belief, you can start questioning it. So is that belief actually true? Is it true for me now? Or is it simply familiar because I've been carrying it for years? Can you see that? Now, I don't want you to think, like I said, that if you've had a belief for 30, 40, 50 years, it's going to change in a few minutes, because it's not. But it is about bringing that awareness into it, all right? So let's have a look. Let's have a look at the tool for you. Now, I call this the money belief rewind. It's 3 steps, takes a few minutes. And in a moment, we're going to do it together. All right. So step number 1 is about recalling the memory, recording the phase, whatever it is you're going to recall. So you're going to bring to mind one thing you heard about money growing up. All right. So what phrase did you hear? Now, number 2 is going to be spot where it's still showing up today. All right. So you're going to notice one decision or a habit that you do today where the old phrase is quietly still in charge. All right. And then the final step is going to rewrite it. All right. So ask, is this true for me now, or is it just familiar? And then you're going to write the sentence you'd rather run instead. Yeah. Don't worry if it doesn't make sense, because we're going to go through it together in a moment. But that is a high level of what we're going to do. Okay. Don't forget to keep talking to me in the chat if you're watching this live. It's very lonely up here sometimes. So I'm going to guide you through this tool now. Now we're going to go and do this slightly different, because I don't want you to be thinking about this intellectually. All right. So if it feels comfortable for you, I want you just to close your eyes for a moment. But obviously do not do this if you're driving or working on machinery, only if you can honestly do this without causing any damage to yourself or to others, right? If not, watch it back on replay or watch it on podcast. Okay? Now what I want you to do is take a nice deep breath in through your nose. And then out through your nose. And again, in through your nose. And out through your nose. And then let it go. And just allow everything to slow down for a moment. Just continue with that breathing as you listen to my voice. And then we're going to look at step 1, which is recall the phrase. And I want you to think back. Don't force anything, but I just want you to notice what comes up. What did money sound like in your house when you were growing up? Maybe picture the kitchen table. Maybe you're in the car. Maybe you can hear your mum and dad talking. What did you hear about money? What did you learn about people who didn't? Maybe it was we can't afford it. Maybe money doesn't grow on trees. That's a really common one. You have to work hard for every penny. People like us don't have money. Whatever comes up, just notice it. And now ask yourself, whose belief was that? Was it mum's? Was it dad's? Or was it someone else's? Or was it something you decided for yourself because of what was happening around you? Just notice. There's no right or wrong answer. Just notice what comes up first. Okay? Now, step number 2, spot where it still shows up. Now, I want you to bring yourself back to your current day, right? Think about one decision involving money or an opportunity. Maybe you're considering investing in yourself. Maybe you know you need to increase your prices. Maybe there's a promotion that you haven't gone for. Maybe there's something you want, but you can't afford it, but you keep telling yourself, that you can afford it. There's something you can afford, but you keep telling yourself you can't. And instead of analysing it, just notice what happens inside you when you imagine doing it. Is there hesitation? Does something tighten? Does a thought immediately appear? What does that little voice say? Then I want you to ask yourself, could that old belief still be influencing this decision? Okay, now step number 3, we're going to rewrite it. And now ask yourself, is that belief actually true for the person I am today? Or is it just simply familiar? Because there's a difference. You don't have the same resources that you had when you were 7. You're not living the same life. You're not the version of you anymore. So what would be a truer belief for the person you are today? Don't choose anything ridiculous, but we're not going from money is really hard to, I'm going to be a millionaire tomorrow. Let's keep it realistic. Just something that feels true and moves you beyond that old belief. Maybe it's as simple as it's okay for me to invest in myself. Or I can earn good money doing something I love. Or maybe my value isn't determined by what my parents believed about money. Whatever feels right for you. Now what I want you to do is just take another deep breath in and let go. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Well done. Drop in the chat one word or phrase. What was the belief that came up for you? Now, has that completely rewired a lifelong belief in 3 minutes? Of course it hasn't. But what you've just done is something really important. You separated what you learn from who you are. And that's where change can begin. You didn't choose the first belief, but you do get to choose this one. So, anyone putting anything in the chat? Let's have a look. No, we're very quiet at the moment, but please do this even after the show finishes because I can still see them. Right. I just want to share with you now one of my own personal stories about money. Growing up, there was me and my 2 sisters, my parents, both worked incredibly hard. My mum made her clothes. We had a little bit of pocket money, and I was always the saver. Whatever money I had, I saved. I liked having money saved. But what I understand now that I didn't understand then was money made me feel safe, right? I remember when I bought one of my first cars, I think it was my second car actually, and I remember it to this day. It was a beautiful green metallic Fiesta gear, and at the time it was only 2 years old, so it was quite chunky. Probably they're more expensive at this a 2-year-old car now, but for me it was quite expensive. And my sister and I went to the garage and we managed to negotiate them down, and but only to the money that I actually had. And we were really chuffed with ourselves. And then afterwards I realised that I didn't even have enough money for the insurance, but my sister very kindly lent me the money, right? So I got this car, loved it, beautiful. Sat on the drive at home, looked at it, amazing. But I remember thinking, I should be excited. But actually I felt sad. And I felt sad because when I looked, I had a building society account with a book at the time, and I had nothing in there. And that made me feel sad. And I didn't realise back then, but that meant that I associated money with keeping me safe. And that might be something that's familiar for you guys as well, that having money is safety and security. And that was the connection that I made. So what did I do? I started again. I started saving again to build up that security. And again, I felt safe once I had a little bit of money. But obviously, since I've changed career and started doing my own identity work and upgrading this, I can see where that came from. I can see why I did it. But I had to make those subconscious changes to understand that actually money isn't about what makes me feel safe. I have to make myself feel safe inside first. It's not about possessions. It's not about money. It's not about what you've got. you've got to feel safe and secure inside before you can have any of that. And then when I started to become a business owner, I had to change again. I had to relearn. I had to learn to invest in myself, in my education, in my training, and learning how to build and run a business. And believe you me, I got very good at investing. But I also had a lot to do working on myself about receiving money, because I realised that I wasn't good at receiving. I was good at spending it, and I was good at doing things for free or very low ticket, but actually asking for my worth, my heart wasn't open to receiving. So charging properly for what I do, I had to do a lot of deep dive work, deep identity work to understand that. And now, what makes me feel safe is knowing that I am good enough, knowing that I can transform people's lives, knowing that what I do is amazing, and having that knowledge and feeling loved by myself. That's what makes me feel safe. And don't get me wrong, I have my rocky days, but I do more deep work. I do my safety audio to help my body remember that it does feel safe. Right? And doing my own identity work has been a huge thing. But the big difference is today is knowing that money doesn't just make me feel safe and secure, knowing that me being me and my confidence makes me feel safe and secure. I've now stopped measuring my success based on how much money I have in my bank account. I measure success on how many people I've helped, how many lives I've transformed, how many friends and family have benefited, but also how many friends and family of the people that I've helped have benefited. It's that whole ripple effect that goes through this. So my money story is completely different now. I choose to measure my safety and my security on the success of the people that I've helped. So that's the money story I live with now, I suppose. That's what I choose to live by. My success, safety and security is based on me loving and being confident in myself and sharing that and helping other people. Does that make sense? So the point was, many of you out there probably feel the same, that we have to have this safety net to feel safe. Don't get me wrong, money is so important in our lives, and it's difficult to live without it, but we still need to understand what's making us feel unsafe inside and make ourselves feel safe. All right? So here's what actually happens when we start shifting this, when we actually start doing it, right? You started to notice that you learn beliefs around money, right? You learn how to be careful. You learn maybe how to be cautious. Maybe you're the one who has to make all those decisions. I don't know. But notice what becomes familiar. So saying no to yourself before anyone can even get to say it is quite common, right? Ask yourself what version of you that old belief is keeping you rehearsing. So if you find that, you're in a situation and you so quickly go, oh no, I can't afford it, or oh no, I can't possibly go forward for that job. I want you to just to stop and just think, okay, is that a belief that I'm holding on to? Is that belief true? Because the chances are it isn't, but it's having that moment to stop and not go into that automatic response mode, because that's learned behaviour and you've been running that since you was a child. And it's taking that moment just to stop and just reflect. And that's what this little process does. Remember, you're not choosing between responsibility and being reckless. You're choosing which identity gets to make the decision. Because this is exactly what I mean when I talk about my identity box, right? It's not just that you're thinking about money, it's who you've learned to be around with money. And once you start changing that identity, you start giving yourself permission to make different choices. I hope this is really making sense and landing for you. So here's what could realistically look like for you. Imagine catching yourself like mid-decision, the not now, maybe next year, oh, I can't do that, and the guilt kicks in, right? I want you to be recognising it. Now, you probably won't feel fearless because that's not realistic, and I wouldn't promise that. But you might pause a bit longer before turning down something. So that's all I'm asking you to do is just pause and stop, right? You might occasionally say yes to something for yourself without the usual internal argument. You might show a small shift, right? Something, just notice it, right? Because you're so used to just being in conscious mode and just going into automatic responses, you don't even notice you're doing it half the time. So if you just start noticing, you might still make the same decision, but at least you've noticed. And then next time, maybe you can notice a little bit quicker. And then the next time you notice a little bit quicker than that. And then the next time you actually change the decision that you make because you're not actually listening to that old belief. Now, this doesn't switch off when this kind of information doesn't just switch off when I sign off here either, by the way. Hopefully this has started to land with you and maybe your mind's going to start thinking about things a little bit more. This is what I hope. I just hope that bringing awareness in might just take you off in a little direction to start thinking about, oh, hang on a minute, what beliefs am I running? Now, here's the thing about money beliefs, right? They don't just show up in decisions at that time. They also show up at 11 p.m. too. So that might be you're replaying a conversation with, maybe you had a meeting today and you underpriced yourself, right? Maybe you're lying there running the numbers through your head and talking yourself around, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Maybe you're telling yourself you'll sort it tomorrow, and then you can't switch off because some part of you is still working on it. Now that costs you, not just in sleep, it costs you in a clear head. And you need that clear head for tomorrow, right? Because tomorrow doesn't start when you wake up. It starts with how you finish today. So here's what I want you to do before we finish. Here's your challenge for this week. I want you to pick one real decision coming up, or when one decision comes up, I want you to think about this process, right? Now, it might be an investment in yourself. It might be a price you're going to charge, an opportunity, a promotion, or simply a conversation about money. It could be anything. But before you make the decision, I just want you to stop, take a breath, and run through the money belief rewind. Money belief rewind. So remember, the first one is recall, number 2 is spot, and second is rewrite. So notice what comes up, ask yourself, whose belief is this? And most importantly, is this actually true for me now? Or is it just simply familiar? Then notice what you do. You're not trying to get it perfect. You're simply gathering evidence that the old version of you doesn't have to make every decision anymore. The new version of you can actually take control. Does that make sense? Now, if tonight you find yourself lying there running numbers, replaying a conversation about money, or arguing with yourself about a decision, this is when you need the evening upgrade. It's free. It's 10-minute audio that I've created for you. And it helps you to actually lay down today so that you can go to bed, you can rest, so that you can start tomorrow clear, refreshed, and ready for the day, right? The evening upgrade helps you stop replaying it after dark. So money beliefs get louder at night when there's nothing else to distract you. And this gives your brain somewhere else to go and a chance to settle before tomorrow's decisions even start. So the two work well. Today's tool helps you catch the belief in daylight, and then the evening upgrade helps you stop replaying it after the dark. I'm going to drop the link in for you, and remember, it's totally free. And you get to hear me some more. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's not. There you go. It's all dropped in for you. There So, as always, I'd really thank you for being here today, and particularly for if you actually went through that exercise with me. But remember, if you didn't do it now, go back and watch it on replay on YouTube, or as I said, it's on all the major podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, can't remember the other one, and Apple. There you go, Apple. And I'd love you to drop any comments on this as well as we go along, if you've got any comments to make. And I want you to really remember that you weren't born with these beliefs about money, right? You learned them. They came from somewhere. And if something can be learned, it can be unlearned. And you get to decide which beliefs belong to the person you are today and which ones belong to the old version of you that you've already left behind. Right? Are you making decisions based on your current age, or are you making decisions based on the 7-year-old version of yourself? And remember, you are worth investing in. And remember the money belief rewind. Recall the phrase you heard about money growing up. Spot where it is still quietly running that decision today. Rewrite it. Ask, is this true now or just familiar? You weren't born with those money beliefs, you learned them. So you can unlearn them, remember that. And a lack of money sometimes isn't the issue. It's a lack of belief in yourself. All right. So as I say, thank you for watching. We are here every Wednesday at 11:30. If you've got any comments, put them in the chat on any of the social media platforms. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care for now. See you later. Bye.